Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled "Neighbor Gets Expensive Smart Home Appliances Installed on Wi-Fi with No Password. Calls the police when I let them know that it is bad." Hi all, I remembered this story from a year or two ago while I was browsing for a spotlight I could turn on and off from my phone. Not related to this story, but my dog wants to go to war with some foxes who keep accidentally turning the motion activated spotlight, which Fuzzface considers dire provocation. I was farting around with a crappy laptop's Wi-Fi card and saw I had an access point I could connect to that was not there before. Signal was so and so, and I had my own internet, so I didn't bother trying to use that one, so I sort of just forgot about it. About a week later I was unplugging some stuff and accidentally unplugged my wireless router, and while it was unplugged my phone found the next accessible Wi-Fi access point. Which was the one I had found previously and not really bothered with. Not my circus, not my monkeys, you know. And then my phone pops up saying I need to install all of these smart home apps to make the appliances work. Which did not make sense. I'm enough of an IT guy to know that unless there is a burning need for it, home automation is not really the best idea. Absolutely no telling who can access that info. These people had their garage doors, heating and air conditioning, lights, interior and exterior, televisions and refrigerator hooked up. All of them were hooked up to a Wi-Fi with no password. In the industry we call that dumb as a bag of hammers. Once I plugged the router back into a piece, the suddenly irate family members wondering where the internet went, I hooked up my dog and took him for a walk. Before I left the house I installed the smart home app and turned on one exterior spotlight and then looked for the house it was attached to. Presumably if I was able to use their Wi-Fi, they were in line of sight. Once I saw the light that was on, I turned it off to make sure. House was on the next street over, directly behind my house. There's a huge hill in the way that the builders left because Mother Nature did not flatten my part of the country as a courtesy, so lots can be next to each other without being accessible. That meant going the long way around. My dog is an adorable 35-pound cockapoo who has much better people skills than I do. When I have to go talk to people I don't know, he comes along because he is about as threatening as a wet noodle. Don't tell him I said that, and I cannot be that bad a man if my dog is as awesome as he is. So we make our way over to the neighbor's house and I knock on their door. A nice older lady answers it, old enough to have moved out kids but not old enough to be considered a Q-tip in my humble opinion. She forgets to ask what I want and immediately goes gooey all over my dog, and her husband hears the adorable appreciation sounds coming from his front door and investigates. He too is floored by my dog's awesomeness. There is about a minute of him getting all the attention and I thought building a report before I remember why I am here. I ask how they like their new smart home stuff and they immediately start getting weirded out. Husband says, "We like it just fine. How do you know we got that stuff?" Please don't take this the wrong way, but you don't have a password on your wireless. My phone connected to it by accident and told me about all the stuff you had installed. Wife cocks her head to one side and husband's brow starts developing a thunderous quality. I start talking faster. "I'm just here to let you know that you really should put a password on your Wi-Fi or anyone can use it to do stuff like open your garage doors." Husband's brow is now in full fury mode and he opens his mouth to presumably shout at me, but before he can, the wife says, "Oh, that's what the installer guy was talking about. He kept saying I needed to encrypt the thingy or something like that. We have never bothered with a password because it is a pain in the butt to set up and remember." Husband has gone from thunderous fury to bewilderment and he looks at his wife and says, "Encrypt the what now?" I don't feel like setting all this up for these people and appliances and networks for them, so I say, "Okay, gotta go, bye." I power walk away from their house and once clear, we mosey back towards my house. About 2 hours later, someone starts knocking at the front door to my house. I live in an in-law apartment in the basement of my parents' house, so that is not my door. My mother answers the door and then stomps down to the door to my part of their house, throws it open and tells me the police are here. again in a frosty voice. I hustle up the stairs and there is Officer Dave, not his real name, but the only officer in my town at that point who knew about computers to actually have a conversation with me without getting a must-smash nerd face. I say, "Hi Dave, what is?" He cuts me off before I can even finish. "You promised me you were done with this after that whole Main Street thing. You effing promised and now I look like an a-hole." Whoever had set up the timing on the stoplights for the main road through my town after some pretty serious construction did an absolutely awful job and traffic was horrific. Me and a locksmith friend decided to fix the problem after reporting the problem to town hall and got nowhere. We didn't break anything, he picked the lock and I hacked the light and then we locked up when we were done. We then got caught on the last light. Only reason I didn't go to jail was because Dave backed me up and made everyone wait a day to see if traffic was better, which it was. I then promised him no more shenanigans. "What? I haven't done anything," says I. "Then why the hell am I getting calls about you opening and closing people's garage doors and turning their lights on and off?" To be fair, that did sound like the sort of thing I would do, not to break into someone's house just to mess with them. I am mischievous, not evil. And then the light dawns. I point and ask, "Did you get called by the people living in that house?" Because I went over there a little while ago to tell them they needed to put a password on their Wi-Fi, and the only thing I did was turn on a spotlight to see which house it was. Nothing more than that. I swear to God. "They don't have a..." There's a thud as Dave facepalms. I let out a "yep" in sympathy. He sighs and says stay out of trouble and I wave by. Turns out their husband called the police and gave a vague description of me and the dog and said I lived nearby, and one of the other cops gave Dave a hard time about him cutting me slack before he drove out to talk to me. The couple got a call back to tell them the issue is resolved and please secure your Wi-Fi. 2 days later, there's a password on their Wi-Fi and we all lived happily ever after, except for getting the stank eye from that couple whenever I walk by. And guys, if you have watched until here and enjoy the stories about awful or just insane neighbors, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled, "Don't wanna help us pay to get your tree off of our house? Well, you can pay to get it taken away." So this happened a little over 6 years ago. I live in the northeast and Hurricane Sandy hit my area pretty hard. We got lucky in that we didn't have a lot of damage to our house itself, our fences were destroyed and that was pretty much it. Except a 50 to 60 feet pine tree from our crotchety neighbor's property fell on top of our house. And guys, here you can see the actual picture of the tree just chilling on OP's house. There was no structural damage luckily, but the tree was huge and definitely got in the way enough to make getting in and out of the house inconvenient. Our homeowner's insurance would pay to move the tree off of our house and into the neighbor's yard, since the tree was theirs, but the neighbors would have to pay out of pocket to actually have the tree disposed of. The tree removal service that our insurance sent us told us it would only cost an extra $200 to have the tree disposed of, as opposed to the usual $600 because they would already be on site. So my mom, out of the kindness of her heart, called our neighbor to ask if he would be willing to pay us that $200, since again the tree belonged to them, plus an extra $100 or so to help with the insurance deductible, effectively saving them 300 smackaroos. Before even considering how this arrangement would benefit them, the husband berated my mom for begging them for money to deal with a problem that was not theirs to deal with. Mama Bear took this in stride and did not even try to change his mind. After all, she didn't have to pay to get the tree disposed of because either way it was going to be removed from our house, so she just told the tree service to lay the tree in the neighbor's yard for them to deal with. We got an angry phone call the next day asking why we didn't have the tree taken away, and my mom told the neighbor that he had the opportunity to save $300 but he didn't want it, so they ended up having to pay $600 to get another crew to come back out to the house and take the tree out of there. It is also worth noting that the tree destroyed the fence between our two properties, which belonged to the neighbors. The original fence was short and really only served to mark the property line, but after this fiasco, they put up a solid 7 feet fence, I guess because being able to see into our yard reminded them of the money they could have saved. And the next one is titled Trim the Hedges. Growing up was very interesting as my parents were divorced and I had ADHD, or whatever they are calling it this week, not so much hyper but definitely the ADD, and that led to a lot of malicious compliance on my part. Here's one. As a teenager, my parents were divorced and money was an issue, so no allowance to do the things teenagers like to do. This also meant no car, no insurance, you get the idea. I watched some friends work minimum wage jobs and hated that idea, so instead I found a lawnmower and started mowing lawns. I lived in a middle-class neighborhood, so 5 to 6 lawns, $20 a pop, a weekend would give you some nice spending cash in the 90s. And by the way guys, that sounds like a ton of money for the 90s. But anyway, one customer a few streets away asked me to trim his hedges for him. I didn't know how or have the tools, but he did. He showed me what he expected and I made it happen. They looked great. He was so happy he gave me $100. In today's money, that would be about $250. When I got home, I was excited and told my mom what happened. My mom, as wonderful as she was, misunderstood life in general. In her mind, if you fixed a car issue, suddenly you were the car expert and knew everything about cars. Same thing with cooking, computers, audio, video, and yard work. She proceeded to tell me to do the same for the bushes in front of our house. I tried to tell her I did not have the tools and was only following his instructions. They were not hedges, but she was adamant I do it, to the point she starts screaming at me. What would any 16-year-old teenager do? So I go grab our replica samurai sword, sharp as all, and start to hack away at the bushes in front of our house. Now, my neighbors knew my mom had unrealistic expectations from previous events, but even this was odd. One of our neighbors came over asking me in a heavy southern accent, which I unfortunately cannot do, "Neighbor, what in the hell are you doing?" Me, cut someone's hedges, and mom suddenly thinks I know how to trim bushes. Neighbor, "Oh, that again. You wanna borrow some powdered clippers?" Me, "Nope, I'm steaming mad at the moment." Mom, hearing the neighbor come out and see her bushes partly mangled. Mom, What the hell are you doing?" Me, trimming the bushes as I proceeded to whack a few more. Mom, "I meant how you're supposed to." Me, "Sure. With what tools?" I'm a genius, right? I trimmed someone's hedges, so I must be able to magically trim bushes. Mom looks befuddled as I continue to hack away using a replica samurai sword. Neighbor steps in, patting me on the back and says, "I think she got the message." As I turn to look at her with a shocked, befuddled look on her face. I took my shirt and cleaned the now dented blade and walked inside to go take a shower. I would love to say this kind of behavior stopped, but it never did. She also never asked me to trim the bushes again. Apartment complex threatened to sue me after I attempted to back out of the lease. To summarize, I am a student entering my final semester of undergrad at PSU. I had intentions of signing a lease last year at a new apartment complex this upcoming fall prior to the entire pandemic happening. Recently, I was presented with the option of either paying a security deposit or getting a guarantor to finalize my lease. Now, I did sign some stuff online, however, I did not give them financial information and did not pay a security deposit or even get a guarantor. This past week, I did a lot of reflecting on my future for school. I do not want to move into an apartment and attend school at University Park since the cases are rising and everything will shut down again. I weighed my options carefully and concluded it would be in my best interest to leave the apartment before I even move in and do an online semester from home, saving me thousands of dollars. Now, I am from a relatively poor background, my family is working class and I work for everything. I never could afford their security deposit of $1,700 and I could not get a guarantor. This morning I called the office and explained everything to the leasing manager. I simply told her that because I cannot afford the security deposit or find a suitable guarantor, I would like to cancel my lease. I was under the impression that because it was not fully completed, they would begrudgingly allow it. However, they have said since I signed my portion, I am legally obligated to go. And if I did not go or find a replacement, which they want a replacement in under a month, which is nigh impossible, they would sue me and make me pay next year at the end of the 12-year lease. What can I do? I can provide additional information for more context if requested. I simply told her that I am most certainly not going to Penn State this fall, and apparently many are trying to get out of their lease as well there. So I understand they are trying to manage a tough situation, but I am in an even tighter financial hole currently. They gave me zero wiggle room to find an alternative besides finding a replacement, which is a pipe dream at best. And a user in the comments said, if you signed a lease, no one is obligated to cancel it for you. That is the point of it. Sucks, but unless you find a replacement, they can go after you. Check what you signed as to what it says when trying to break a lease. Typically, there is a lease break fee, or you are financially responsible for the unit till someone moves in or the lease expires. Update to the lease story. After no contact with the apartment complex for a few days, I began contacting a few legal experts after receiving some very helpful advice from Reddit. Going forward, I spoke to the leasing manager after acquiring several documents showing the lease to be invalidated and void if I did not acquire a guarantor. And to my surprise, they completely dropped the ordeal. Currently, I've been advised to send a letter of confirmation that I am not going to be living there on the basis that I have no guarantor. It is possible to break a lease if they state you cannot move in without providing a guarantor. Remember to reread your leases before they entrap you. Welcome back to more mother-in-law stories where users share their crazy experiences with their own mother-in-laws. And we might even feel a little bit better about our own mother-in-law. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our awesome community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. My fiance and I traveled home for the holidays. Our parents live about 3 hours apart from each other and we were spending 12 days, so we were going to do about 7 at my family's and 5 at his. We had a blast with my family and they love my partner. Before we drove to his parents, he pretty explicitly told my parents that if his mom said anything to me he thought was stepping over the line, we were coming back, but the last time we had stayed at their house it was fine, so I was not worried. We got there and started chatting about jobs, etc. Both of us graduated from undergraduate last year and I started graduate school, a fact she did not know about me. She asked me what I was doing to make money and I said, well, I work part-time and help where I can, but my partner makes really good money and is fine supporting me while I finish my degrees. She looked like she was going to snap my neck. She looked at my partner and said, oh great, so she's not having kids, you two are going to live in a degenerate downtown for the rest of your lives. Downtown Portland, by the way, they live in the Midwest. And she's a leech who steals all your money. And obviously your food, since she has gained so much weight. I've been a size 14 since I was a sophomore in high school. My partner flipped and he started going off on gender stereotypes and told his mom that she was no longer welcome in our lives. We had not even unpacked the trunk. His dad came out and apologized but understood why we could not stay, gave us our Christmas gifts and we went back to my family. Honestly, I am a little bummed because I know his brother cut contact with his mom, shockingly for how his mom treats his wife, and my partner is obviously upset because he does love his family and feels like his mom is ruining what could be really wonderful with a lot of his siblings getting married and growing families. My mom told him they were all welcome to our holidays, they all live within 2 hours of my parents, and we plan to extend that invitation next year so maybe my partner can have a family reunion with his siblings again. The holidays. And guys, I'm wondering, when you have your holidays, do you usually have a lot of stress because of maybe in-laws or general family? How is it for you? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled Monster-in-Law. New here, sorry if formatting is all wrong, little bit of backstory. Installment 1 of probably a billion. I've been married to my husband, the H, for over 11 years. We have 3 children, 2 sons and 1 daughter, the oldest son from a previous relationship. I had decent relationships with my mother-in-law for the first couple of years of my marriage. Then I learned the hard truth as to why you never work with family. I was working 2 jobs while my husband worked 1 part-time. One of my jobs was the second shift desk clerk at a decent franchised hotel. I had been there a few months when mother-in-law got fired from her job. I made the huge mistake of getting her a job where I worked. Things seemed to go normal until Christmas rolls around. I was excited because I had worked super hard on handmade gifts and bought a big dog McStuffins playset for my niece. Could not wait to see their faces. Mother-in-law keeps hemming and hawing every time I ask when we are planning to hold Christmas. My husband has 2 siblings and the majority of us work unconventional schedules. I find out while at work on Christmas that they are holding it then. I was devastated. Mother-in-law comes up with excuses that it was the only time everyone could get together. My husband apologizes because he had only found out an hour before telling me. Fast forward a week, the awesome manager finally gets tired of the GA owner of the hotel and quits on New Year's Eve. Owner comes in later that night and makes me the new manager. I had the most seniority and had only been there since July. My responsibilities as manager as thus hiring, training, scheduling, payroll, accounts receivable and payable, covering any call-ins, getting the breakfast order in for the next week, clearing the front lobby, handling all customer complaints and being on call 24/7 for emergencies, as well as working a minimum of 28 hours a week at the front desk. Also, no one was allowed to work more than 36 hours per week so he could avoid paying healthcare costs. On a good week, I averaged around 50 hours per week. On a bad week, 90 plus hours a week. 3 months into this already hellish job, I discovered that mother-in-law has been trash-talking me to anyone at work she possibly could. She complains that my house is a mess, see the hours worked for the reason, and that I relied on my husband to do everything. He was working 30 hours per week, and she accuses me of not loving my husband and exclaims I only married him for the free childcare. When she starts telling cute stories about 3-year-old at the time son, she refers to him as my grandson and begins telling guests that she is really the manager. She was very careful about most of this until 2 of my coworkers came separately and told me the exact same thing. I felt like she had actually stabbed me in the heart. I could not fire her if she said those things about me when I thought we were on good terms. Imagine the blowback after taking away her income. So I tried to ignore it. The next weekend the hotel is booked solid. I worked the afternoon shift at the front desk and then was back up there at 6 AM to help mother-in-law with the morning rush. Guest comes up to the desk complaining about an issue I know she's lying about because I fixed it personally. Guests want a full refund because the non-existent issue kept her up all night. I apologize for the inconvenience and explain the best I can do is a 10% discount. Mother-in-law pipes up and questions me in front of the guest. Surely there's something more we can do. That was the straw that broke this camel's back. I said excuse me to the guest, walked into my office and called the owner, told him I quit and walked out the door. Dear husband confronted her for the first time that day. She denied everything, but he knew she was lying. Stay tuned for more stories because I promise you I have the mother-in-law load. And ripe stars, unfortunately we have already reached the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed the content. However, if you cannot wait for more ripe content, then I suggest you head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where you can find more exclusive Reddit content read by me. Patreon subscriptions start at just $1 per month, and for $1 your name will show up at the end of each of my new videos. However, if you are willing to spend $3 per month, you will get access to more than 50 exclusive Reddit videos, mostly just no mother-in-law stories. However, please understand I don't want to pressure anyone into spending money, because I am already incredibly grateful that you watch my videos every single day. Thank you so much for your daily support, it really means the world to me, and I hope to see you again tomorrow for the next video.